Welcome back to GBNews Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dordman. Now, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is set to roll back most of last summer's winter fuel payment cuts in her spending review, while still defending the original move to axe the benefits and, as ever, blaming the Conservatives for forcing her hand. Now, around 2 million high-earning pensioners will repay it through the tax system, leaving a multi-million-pound hole that Rachel Reeves must plug in the autumn budget, fueling fresh warnings of yet another tax hike. Now, GBNews political editor Chris Hope spoke to the Chancellor earlier on today.
You're taking away £300 last year from pensioners. You're giving it back in 2025. This is the political hokey-cokey by your government. It's humiliating, a U-turn. Do you want to apologise for millions of pensioners who have been so upset by the cut from last year?
We had to make difficult decisions last year. The public finances were in a total mess when I became Chancellor last summer, and we had to take immediate action to get control and get a grip of the public finances. We have been able to do that. We've returned stability to the economy. In the first quarter of this year, our economy was the fastest growing in all of the G7, which now means we're able to make different choices. And that's why today I can announce that this winter, 9 million pensioners will now receive the winter fuel payment.
Well, that was the Chancellor talking to our chopper earlier on today, and I'm delighted to say I'm now joined in the studio by the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Helen Whately, and also by the former Labour MP and Minister, Stephen Pound. Welcome both. Miss Whately, I shall start with you. You detect the howling screech of a U-turn from the Chancellor earlier on today. Will it be enough to satiate the voters, or will never forgive her for it?
Well, I mean, I welcome the U-turn. Back when Labour made this announcement they were going to cut the winter fuel allowance for hundreds of thousands of pensioners, we said it was the wrong thing to do, and we've been campaigning for them to have a rethink and sort that out. So I can welcome that they've made a U-turn, but the suggestion that Rachel Reeves just made in that clip, that it's because they've got the grip on the economy now, is just for the birds. I mean, who does she think she is fooling? On every single economic metric, things are looking worse than when Labour got into government.
Well, people are going to be confused, Stephen Pound, let's bring you in. Yeah. We were told implicitly tough decisions had to be made. Yeah. We were handed a terrible hand, a £22 billion black hole. We could all hear that quote in our sleeps by the Conservatives, yet we were told there'd be a run on the pound if this wasn't made, Mr. Pound. And here we are. They decided, well, that's not the case. In actual fact, the £1.5 billion savings will only save now about 400 million quid. So what was the point of it all along?
Well, there's a basic point of absolute fairness here. And, you know, I agree with Kemi Badenoch when she said earlier, she said many of her constituents used to say to her, I don't need it, I don't want it. Why am I having it? Why does the king get it? It made no sense whatsoever. What we want to do is to target scarce resources to the people who need it most. We do not need to give the winter fuel payment to multi-millionaires. So what we've done now is we've actually sorted that problem.
So why take it from everybody? It was clearly a blunderbuss approach, and now it's spectacularly backfired.
Well, no, hang on a second. Just the Labour Party came in July, and we had a couple of months to try to steady the ship. If you look, I mean, Helen talks about the various matrices. The pound against the dollar, up. The FTSE 500, really up. We're actually in a much stronger financial position today than we were last July. Come on, that's undeniable.
No, it's not going to wash. So inflation is higher, growth forecasts have come down, unemployment is up, borrowing is up, so many things going in the wrong direction. There's simply nothing to say that the things are going they're going the wrong direction.
Just as, you know, when it comes to football, you always listen to the bookies. Similarly, when it comes to the economy, actually listen to the markets, listen to the stock exchange. We are in a far, far better position. As I quoted,
no, not true. Long-term borrowing costs are going up. So everything, as I say,
you tell me any country in Europe where they aren't going up.
Is getting this wrong.
We're nowhere near America.
And so, I mean, the fact is, at least the Chancellor's recognised that she and the government made a big mistake with this last year, and they're trying to fix that mistake. But the fact is, it won't make up for last winter when we saw hundreds of thousands of pensioners struggling through the winter.
Did we?
50,000 more.
Where were they?
50,000 more went into poverty. Could you just keep talking? Just give me a moment. So we saw 50,000 more pensioners going into poverty in the government's own numbers, an extra 100,000 admissions into A&E. And many of us have heard from many pensioners themselves saying how much they struggled directly. So actually it was really tough. Yes, so this U-turn is the right thing to do, but the government really should be apologising for what they did last winter.
And Stephen Pound, it's worth pointing out in opposition, the Labour Party said they would never do this. On the record, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, the Deputy Leader, Ed Miliband, the whole blooming lot of them said they'd never do it. In power, they did, based upon the fact their own figures said 4,000 pensioners could perish if they did it. Yet they pressed the button, and here's the point. They've done a U-turn because they got their asses kicked, pardon my French, in May. They got annihilated at the polling booths. This is a decision based on political survival. It's not a decision based on doing the right thing.
A couple of things. First of all, Helen, and I'm sorry to talk over you earlier. That was rude of me, and I apologise. But look, we were told that there would be dead bodies piling up in the streets. You talked about those admissions to A&E. That's rubbish. That is no different to the ordinary winter pressures that A&E department. I'm sorry, they weren't. And there weren't. Thanks be to God, there were no dead bodies. But look, as for the Tories claiming that you've turned the screw and you've actually won it, I'm sorry. It was Reform that has actually made this. It was Reform over and over again who made the running on this, not the Tories, because the Tories fundamentally, a great many Tories actually think that the idea of a universal benefit that puts money in the pockets of millionaires was just wrong.
OK, Stephen Pound, you've had a lot to say. Helen Whately, have a go. Is that fair? Is this the tail wagging the dog? Nigel Farage has actually forced Conservative Party hand on this.
Well, I just want to pick up a couple of things that Stephen said. I mean, on the point about extra admissions to A&E, those are the facts. 100,000 extra admissions this winter. So, well, it's just in the data. So do go and look it up. And as I was previously the Minister with responsibility for A&E and urgent care, I was watching this and worked very hard on it last winter. I was a hospital porter. We were in government, which therefore views of porters very important. I've spoken to many over the years. And to the point on how come this happened, well, Conservatives have been campaigning on Age UK has been campaigning on, many of us have been campaigning on it, including in fact now some Labour backbenchers broke ranks, but we were the ones who pushed in government for a vote on this, and actually back when we had that, loads of Labour MPs just trooped into the lobby and voted with the government on it now yes, at last the government has listened and made this U-turn. I say a lot of hard graft has gone into securing this change in policy.
Is it worth... lost in May, we lost in May, Reform won in May. Let's not forget that.
Is it worth pointing out, Helen Whately, that the position of the Conservative Party previously was to means test, which meant that the wealthiest wouldn't get it, and that seems to be what the Labour Party have done today. There's been a lot of criticism from the Conservative Party about the Reform Party being Corbynistas. But are you basically coming out with the same stuff today as Rachel Reeves' new position? So
our consistent position, and Kemi Badenoch herself has been very clear on this, is that we don't think that in the IDA world that millionaires should be receiving the winter fuel payment.
Agree.
Those who need it and those who are the very wealthiest. And some people will say to you, all of us have been on the doorsteps, both of us have been, that maybe they give it to charity. However, our view was what Rachel Reeves did last year was completely wrong, just slashed it from pensioners, many of whom were on an income of around, say, £11,000 a year, then lost it last winter. That was the wrong way to go about it. And what I think this shows to us is that Labour came into government without a plan. They're lurching around. They did that last year. Now they've announced this policy. And it's just, the fact is you need to do the hard work in opposition to work out what you're going to do in government, not just come up with the latest thing to get a headline.
Stephen Pound, a lot of people have been saying that the winter fuel allowance cut by the Labour Party was their poll tax moment. The Conservatives reversed the poll tax and they did survive the political fallout. Do you think that the Labour Party can survive this? Will the voters forgive and forget? Or will the voters, particularly pensioners, just remember that they were used as political capital, they were thrown under the bus, and this only changed after a huge backlash?
Well, let's not try to underestimate the impact. There's no question, and Helen's absolutely right, you're on the doorstep, it came up over and over again. But don't forget, we won that by-election last Thursday. We won that. The Tories came nowhere. And yet, over and over again, this issue of the winter fuel allowance was being raised on the doorstep by the Conservatives and my Reform. And yet, at the end of the day, I think people realised that horribly tough decisions were made. And now, when the facts change, you change your mind. People talk about a U-turn.
You do a U-turn, you mean?
People, you've been saying to us for ever since last July, you should actually reverse this. Now we've actually done something. Let's have a bit of credit for it.
Well, I said I welcome the U-turn, but the facts haven't changed. In terms of the economic
facts have changed.
No, the Chancellor is trying to make make out that the economy's in a better place.
It is.
It is not. It's fundamentally not in a better place.
OK, perhaps they dig up a magic money tree from Jeremy Corbyn's allotment. Who knows? Helen
Listen,
Whately.
I've been on Jeremy Corbyn's allotment, mate. There's nothing magic there, I can tell you.
What goes on tour stays on tour. Stephen Pound, thank you very much. And Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, thank you for coming in tonight to see us here at GB News.